Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Rolling Stories brought to you by Rolling Airways. And in today's episode, we are very pleased to welcome Melissa Key on the show. Hi, Melissa. Welcome to the show.
Hi, Adrian. Thank you for inviting me.
You're most welcome. I'm really excited to have this conversation with you today. But before we begin, for our listeners who may not be familiar with what you do, could you do a quick introduction about yourself and perhaps the company that you're currently with as well?
Sure. Well, I am the Chief People Officer for Temus. Temus is a digital consultancy firm set up by Temasek in partnership with USD, a global digital services firm. And our focus is in partnering with forward-looking public sector and agencies as well as large enterprise in their focus towards driving digital transformation for the organization.
And that's really the key thing that we'll be discussing today, digital transformation. And you actually have extensive experience in quite a number of different industries: technology, conglomerate, healthcare, chemical. And I'm very certain it comes with the idiosyncrasies as well as some commonalities. For the listeners and for myself who don't have the luxury of going through all these different industries, could you share with us some of the highlights and importantly, what some of the commonalities and differences when it comes to digital transformation?
Well, I think different organizations have very different appetite for change. It's very much shaped by the type of business and sectors that they operate in. And I have the opportunity to work for tech industry, chemical, healthcare, as in pharmaceutical and medical device, Asian conglomerate across property, maritime, and agri solutions, and most recently with Temus, back to tech, focusing on tech consultancy, right? So I would say if I look across all these sectors, there are some commonalities in terms of I would say there's one thing that really, is a strong focus for all the companies I've worked for is the strive for innovation and change to stay ahead of competition. And I'm very fortunate to be working for companies that are either number one or number two in the sector. So clearly, they perform at their best, right? And that's one thing that I see, which is quite common. The strive for success and continuous forward-looking innovation for their products and services. The other thing that I see common is their focus on people, because they recognize that they need good people and good talent to be able to execute on the strategies well in every country or every business segments that they're in. And that translates into a very, very strong people strategy to support that. And that's where we come in from a people standpoint. And that's where I find it extremely fun and challenging at the same time, because every single policy or initiatives that we implement within an organization can essentially effect change in a positive way for the organization. And that has been something that I'm most passionate about, and I've been able to learn from some of the best and also continuously hone my skills to be a strong HR professional.
So when someone in the HR sphere move from one industry to another, especially if it's a new industry, entirely new industry altogether, where the previous playbook may not apply 100%, and given what you shared, that different industries may have different key focus, how does one identify what is actually the new and key focus for the new industry in order to ensure that the implementation or at least the thinking process would align to the expectation from that new industry?
Yeah, I normally start with a few key drivers for myself, because you have seen my background. I've been in different industries, and each time I get a lot of excitement trying to crack it, right? So I reach a point where I have a few success formulas that I apply consistently, and that has. So if I were to give advice to anybody who is considering moving to a new industry or a new environment, these are some of the best tips I would offer. I think number one is always ask yourself, what is the value you bring to the table, right? Because organizations will hire you for what you can offer to them at the point of time or in the near future. So then that's the most important thing. Is it a skill set? Is it about the experiences? Or is it about a certain ability you have to fill a gap that they have? Quickly identify that. And I think that's very important. Once you do, then you want to find an alignment yeah, with your manager or with your team or the organizations in terms of the purpose, alignment of purpose, right? And to me, that's important because that will ensure that you go for the long run, not just for the short term. And that's important because in every job that we do, there will be challenging objectives and outcomes expected of us. So then it is important that in this case, you must be passionate about the role that you sign up for. You must feel for the purpose and mission of the organization. And once you have that alignment, the energy will keep you going when the going gets tough, right? So that to me is the second part, the alignment. And third to me is the ecosystem. Ecosystem is very important. It's like the culture or the team that you can work together with that enable you to be even more successful. Therefore, as you assimilate into a new environment, you can quickly fit in. And that is important because sometimes I hear comments around culture fit. Oh, this person is good, but not quite a good fit for our culture. But what does it mean? And I think it has to do with your ability to work well with the team or fit in with the way things gets done. Yeah. So earlier I talked about the different industries and sectors and the nuances in terms of their risk appetite or the change agility and all that. Those are the type of characteristics that one must look out for to then say, okay, do I have an alignment, in terms of my style, my preference, the ability that I bring to the table, and the pace of change. How does that fit in with the environment that I'm in? So altogether, I would say three things: the value, the alignment, and the ecosystem.
And over and above what you shared, I would imagine for any such transformation exercises, things can be very complicated because there's just so many variable factors, right? You have your stakeholders, you have the company's operations, you have the people, and you have so many different considerations. And I would imagine as much as every one of us would want things to be very successful, there might be certain instances where there are certain missteps, certain pullbacks, or certain things that did not go well. What are some of the things that you have commonly observed, which might be common mistakes or common pitfalls that HR may fall into during such HR transformation exercises?
So to me, when it comes to transformation exercise, the number one thing that I observe that organizations tend to deprioritize, it doesn't mean that they don't recognize that is important. It's just that when you are driving change, there's just so many different dimensions, as you just mentioned, right? There's people, there's process, there's business, there's so many stakeholders in that equation. But in fact, the most important element is the people. That's why I'm a strong proponent of it. And I firmly believe that when organizations look at change in any shape or form, they must first address the people factor, because that will be the first stakeholder that will feel the resistance, right? Because we are creatures of habit. So naturally, we want stability. We want to know that, oh wow, first thing when they hear of change, what will happen to their job? Even in terms of digital transformation, I still remember when I was so passionately proposing an idea to digitalize some of our talent management practice, which impact another function outside of my people team. The immediate response was, what will happen to my job? So it's a very basic yet important element for all organizations to take note of, because if we don't address what it means for the people, in the new state that you are driving towards to, then there will be a silent majority that will pray and hope that you will fail in your efforts to transform, and there will be a strong, I'll call it a resistance, right, force against the change. And I've seen that too, how organizations that put in place some systems, and there are what I call shadow process and systems at the same time, because the roles have not been transformed, people have not been upskilled, and they continue to do what they do in addition to the systems that have been put in place. And that would not be a successful outcome, I would say.
How would you suggest for HR to try and mitigate all these kind of measures? And also importantly, are there significant consideration looking at whether people come from different industry, different age group, or maybe even a different locale altogether?
Yeah, I think one way to bring people along the change journey is to involve them from the start. To me, that's always a good thing to do. So they are part of that co-creation journey. And that to me is the most important. I don't think people will like to be surprised, when they hear about an important project, transformation project happening, and they are not part of it. And I think that's rule number one, I would say. Involve the people early and get them to be part of that solutions as you think about the future state. Yeah, to me, that's one. And you will be surprised how people respond to that. Even the skeptics might be convinced that, it will be valuable for them to embrace the change. Because at the end of the day, it's about not just about job redesign. It's also about job creation, and it's also about bringing people along that journey and how they can be part of it.
Thank you so much for sharing with us all about your experience, your journey, your encounters on digital transformation. For people who may be keen to learn more about you and what you do, where can they go to?
You can find me on LinkedIn. I've shared a few blog and articles, and certainly will be happy to connect with anyone who is
Awesome.
keen to stay connected. Yes.
Great. This will be added into the show notes. Once again, Melissa, thank you so much for coming onto the show.
Thank you, Adrian. Thank you for the opportunity to share my perspective.